Hello, my friends. I kind of just want to go over a little bit of a accumulation of the things that I'm seeing happen and what it means, what it has always meant all throughout history of humanity and the nations that they've built up. And I want to show you something. And I keep being led to all of these different channels of people who I know have a form of godliness. They believe in Christ, but they're also looking after other gods at the same time, because that's also what Israel has always done. For instance, they're ones that will call Jews God's chosen people, or they'll say that a Catholic is just as saved as a Protestant, or all of these other things. They're worshiping multitudes of gods. So what happens with that is they keep looking for the same things as being signs, return days of Christ. They'll look at Jewish feast days. They'll look at Christian feast days. They'll look at all these different feast days that the Lord long tires of by the time he moves into position. And they're going to look for these days for the return of Christ, when Christ isn't going to come on any of them. Or if he does, it's going to be fulfill it specifically for them who are still in the tribulations. It has nothing to do with us who are not going to be here for it. So you have all of these different accumulation of signs. They're looking at one thing. I'm looking at something completely different, even though I see what they're looking at the same time, and they see what I'm looking at the same time. They're prioritizing a whole set of things differently than how I'm prioritizing it. And I've explained all about how this comet that's passing over us leads us into a window of a month or two to where it can fulfill every single thing written of the coming of the Lord, the signs, the very last signs in the end before the tribulations, because it's happening during the exact time of a transition between the ending of sorrows into the beginning of the great tribulations. It's a unique event on the course of the earth, just like this comet is a unique comet. Nobody in mankind will ever see it or has ever seen it. So it's all tied into the same thing, that period of 21 to 22 years between devastating aerial events in America. 9/11, 1979, the crash of Flight 191, 1957 Sputnik, which shows who it is who is going to be risen up in the last days to perform an act of judgment against America. Sputnik was launched by Russia, of course. That led to the whole space race. So you were given who was going to be the destroyer sent at the end. Then you were given one incident in 1979. Then you were given a worse incident in 2001. And it puts you in that same 21 to 22 year period of time with this comet passing over us right at the exact time to fulfill all of these different things. So whenever you take a look at what's happening, we're not talking about religious festivals or feast days right now. We're talking about creation itself being a witness, being a testimony of the coming of the Lord. You have all of these different events that are happening, like the Bank of America crashing. People couldn't get their money out of it. You had the aviation crash, the FAA, when it grounded all of those flights. They're saying now it was because contractors mistakenly deleted files. If you go back and you look up an event, and just even do a search for it, where you could search out military nuclear facility shut down in the 70s, you'll see specific events that have happened where people have claimed that aliens or extraterrestrials actually shut down our military bases to where we could not launch nuclear weapons during the height of the Cold War. So there's those events that we've seen. You have all of the judgment just pouring out in California, in New York City, in the cities throughout the world. You have the left and the right constantly battling each other, with now the right entering into a civil war similar to what the left is also entering into. They're even against themselves. Any house divided will not stand, unless everybody swings on a pendulum happily without ever seeing these signs that are coming over them. You have all of these different earthquakes in diverse places and growing. You have all of these cyber attack threats. You have us now creating a laser beam that can direct lightning down to the earth. But specifically speaking about these cyber attacks with the aviation, the airplanes, and all of these fires that have happened in manufacturing plants and food production plants. When you put all of these things together, along with the influx from the southern border, you're looking at an invasion that's already begun, but it's not yet visible to people. It passes right by them because they're looking after other things instead of looking at what's actually happening itself. They're looking at feast days when they should be focusing on the events around them. Anytime a country, or in this case, anytime there's about to be any kind of a war break out, ahead of time, whoever the ruler, the king is that's planning on the invasion, always sends a smaller force into the battlefield to do certain things to weaken their opponent, which is why you see all of these different crashes and things happening. We're being weakened, but nobody is paying attention to it. Nobody is recognizing that this is a sign of an invasion. And what is the invasion at the end times? Well, of course, God raises up a nation to strike Babylon. There's cups of judgment poured out by humanity itself. But then there's God raising up his own angels to destroy all of those who will come against him in a battle known as Armageddon. There's a precursor to that battle also. And whenever God is moving to get into position, he does nothing unless he first reveals what he is about to do to his prophets. And there are many people who have had the Spirit poured out on them, and they are also looking at the things I'm talking about and at least seeing them and recognizing that it means a judgment is coming. But this is how judgment works. People don't understand how judgment actually works and looks like in the world. They always say that judgment is coming. But I tell you differently. By the time you see the signs of judgment, you're not just looking at a judgment to come, you're seeing a fruit of that judgment to come. And a fruit is not produced without first having plants dug into the soil, grown up, and ready for a harvest. Meaning that we're already seeing the fruits of the judgment. It's not a judgment to come. We're about ready to have the fruits harvested. And what you're seeing by all of these signs, specifically the cyber attack signs, is a first fruit harvest of these. The enemy that's coming in to invade is harvesting some of the fruits that it's about to completely go into harvest mode and take, with Russia being the one who pronounces this first series of man judgments against us. Babylon is going to be stricken by her, but ultimately by God. And we get to the other piece that I'm thinking about, and really have been thinking about this and seeing it lining up. You're seeing pilots now all over the country talking about how they're seeing unidentified flying objects, as now we call them something even different than that. Unidentified aerial phenomenon, whatever they're calling it now, to try to mislead people into seeing what it actually is. They're seeing and reporting these things all over. When you look up at the night sky, I mean, I'm telling you, you will look up at the night sky if you have visibility of it with wherever you're at, and you will see things that you have never seen before. When you were growing up, or even 10 or 15 years ago, if you've ever sat out just at the night sky looking up, maybe in a camping party or something like that, you will see things now in the night sky with your eyes, just without binoculars, telescope, anything, that you will have no idea what you're looking at. And all of these things have all been happening and coming over the course of time, but people are so busy looking about the other cares and concerns that they're looking right past that. There are objects in the sky that look like disco balls. They'll rotate and have all these different colors. It's not a satellite, it's not a star. What is it? These things that people will say, oh, well, that's just Venus you're looking at. Well, no, I see where Venus is. It's over there. I've gone into the constellations. I can tell you exactly where certain planets are. I'm not looking at Venus because I can also see it to the left. I'm clearly seeing something else, but what am I seeing? And these things, well, it's just satellites. Well, no, it's not a satellite, because you see that one up there? That one's a satellite. That's easy to spot. It doesn't look like this thing that's sitting here dancing in front of me. Or you'll look up and you'll see objects that literally are moving around in random looking patterns, like a ping pong ball, going really fast in one direction, stopping, really fast in another direction, stopping, going up and down and the left and to the right, and moving all around you. And you can't ever remember seeing anything like that whenever you were younger. So these signs, they're clearly visible in the heavens. And when you see these signs, it means presence of angels coming back. You know how they used to call the gods of old, all these different gods of all these different names. They were angels, clearly spoken and depicted when you look at some of the relics of Egypt, where they were drawing spaceships on the rocks. Clearly these things have been here before, and they've been depicted, and the Bible tells you all about their coming and their presence in the world. But yet there's a veil put between us. But when the end comes, that veil is torn apart. And we're beginning to see that veil open up, and more of these things becoming visible till when it's finally torn completely, and you will literally see a war in the heavens above you. That's been going on. All these shots from the International Space Station, everything else. So what if it's not particularly a nation that is sending forth the message that there's about to be an invasion? What if it's the angels themselves who are sending forth this message that there's going to be a gigantic attack that human beings are not going to be able to stop, likened to an EMP? Just imagine, know how bad 9/11 was. Now, look at something like an Airbus 310, Airbus 320. This is an airplane, a passenger airplane I'm talking about, where it's controlled by fly-by-wire. So are most every plane you see up in the sky. They've gone to the point of technological ability to where basically the plane flies itself. Pilots just input most of their things on a computer. Or the stick that they're controlling is not actually hydraulics, it's fly-by-wire, meaning their inputs get run to an electronic system, which then flies the actual airplane, produces the movements needed that the pilot wants. Just imagine if all that gets shut down at once, and you have 1,000 passenger airplanes up in the sky that suddenly now are completely uncontrollable. That's what kind of a disaster that I'm seeing. And it's not a man-made disaster. It's an introduction to the angels who we know are coming back. Because clearly when you look in the book of Revelations, you can see their presence over the earth. So I believe what we're seeing now is two different kind of invasions. One, an invasion by man. You see Russia being put in position to make cities in Babylon made desolate. But you also see God bringing forth his angels to prepare for the events that come after that. Meaning, there's two forms of invasion coming, just like there is, the bowls being poured out and the cups being poured out. One is controlled by man and reaping what he sowed, and the other is God's ultimate finality of judgment poured out on a completely, at that time, unbelieving people that will never believe, that are completely evil, that are the minions of Satan, that will go into the lake of fire with him. And I think what we're seeing with all of these signs is specifically the computer, the electrical signs, the destruction of certain things. It's an enemy preparing to invade. One hand, it is an enemy for America, Babylon, but on the other hand, they're going to take everybody and go against God. So you're watching the enemies of God be softened for a blow. And the reason that we're being softened is because Russia is going to provide one of those blows before God ultimately provides the grandest of blows, which she will never get up again. So all of these signs that I'm seeing right now puts America in the position to be made desolate. And just like the secret soldiers that go in, the strike forces go in before a battle is declared, all of these events that you see lining up in the country that people are it's just like they're turning a blind eye to it, like it's normal. All of that is to soften the country up for a major, major blow to come. And I think we're right in that window of that 21 to 22 year period of time, comet passing over, all the signs that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24, where that window is going to be fulfilled. Don't know exactly when this is going to come, but as I've told you in the last video, every single day I prepare for that day to come, but I never expect it. And that is how I will continue to live my life, because I've already built the ark. I'm already boarding it, ready to go on it whenever the Lord comes. You prepare to build that ark by walking with the Lord now, understanding that your faith in him is what builds it. You won't be able to escape what comes upon this world. The only escape is in him, and trust and belief in him. Thus, whenever he sends his angels to harvest you, God will send his angels to you, just like Lot. You are not surprised and taken back by those angels that grab onto your hand and want to rescue you. You go with them without hesitation because you are expecting them. God bless.